At A&A Paving, we believe in providing customers with quality products supported by excellent service, all at a fair price. We do what we say and we stand by our work. A&A Paving brings you 2 decades worth of solid asphalt paving experience and a solid reputation in the pavement construction, repair, and maintenance industry. We provide commercial and residential seal coating, asphalt paving, and repair services for Cape Cod and southeastern Mass. A&A Paving, 508-540-4944. Founder Abraham Penn taught a valuable lesson that has been part of a tradition since 1919 when he said, "I'd rather make a friend than make a sale." For more than 90 years, Puritan has been making friends as a unique family-owned company right here in Cape Cod. At Puritan Cape Cod on 199 Main Street, as well as Chatham, Mashpee, and Hyannis, you'll find the latest in men's and women's clothing, as well as ski and tennis equipment, and much more. Puritan Cape Cod, 548-0116, or PuritanCapeCod.com.
Call the meeting to order on Monday, September 14th, 2015, and invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we got a lot of business to do.
Okay, do we have any announcements from the board or for the town manager's office?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have anyone like to make any public comment on an issue that is not before us on our agenda this evening? Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. First, we have Monday, August 17th, regular session, public session. Any corrections, changes? Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of August 17th.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Next is August 24th, public session.
I move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Patterson's not here. He'll be abstaining. We then have the executive session on August 27th. It's our first item concerning the terms and conditions of the lease with the Steamship Authority. We have a motion to approve and not to release. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve with one correction.
Okay.
Mr. Lamson's name doesn't have a P, it's just L-A-M. That's all.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve with that one correction. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And one abstention. Mr. Patterson, please. Meeting executive session, August 24th, item 2, dealing with litigation and discussion of the wind turbine. A motion to vote and not to release.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Patterson. Thank you. All right, our next is under our summary of actions, our licenses. And this is first to approve a license agreement between the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and the town of Falmouth for the installation and maintenance of bike racks in Woods Hole. And this is on the corner of the 45 Water Street parking lot in Eel Pond.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve. I think having bike racks wherever we can have them is good, especially when they're near the bike path, as these would be, and with the contribution from the Oceanographic as well.
Second?
And if you'll notice, there also is liability coverage that's within the part of this agreement. All right? Any-
I might mention that I know that the Community Preservation Committee, in contributing to this effort, has checked out to make sure that that we can put public funds into a private space like this with the appropriate conditions.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. Under administrative orders, I think there are enough of these that I think we may want some brief discussion on that. I'm not going to do them as a blanket, but do them one by one. The first is to approve a water main extension easement
Hold.
on Weston Road. We're just going to discuss them one by one. So.
Oh, you are? Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Okay. And, sure, your
Well,
question, thoughts about?
Well, I wanted to say something about it because normally when we do water mains on private roads, it's usually because we've had a petition from the abutters or the owners of the private road to accept it, to put in the utility and then to accept the road as a town road. But that isn't the case here. The people who live on Weston Road, which is really a dirt road to start with, really were only interested in just having town water, as opposed to us going through the whole taking process. So that makes it a lot easier, I think, to approve, and we don't get involved in the policy that the board established back in the mid-'90s about those who wanted to have their roads accepted by the town. So I would move it, unless I already do.
So we have a motion to approve the water main extension easement.
Second? Okay.
Second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. Okay, the next is a vote to accept the award, the authorize the pre-proposal on the Buzzards Bay Area Stormwater Project in cooperation with Association to Preserve Cape Cod and the Horsley-Witten Group. Again, this is moving forward in what we can do to be protecting the estuaries along the Buzzards Bay side and the embayments.
I move that we authorize the pre-proposal, I guess that's what it is.
Yes, it's a pre-proposal. And you'll notice in your packet there is a letter that has been drafted that would be coming from me on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. So the proposal would be saying that you are okay with me signing that letter on behalf of the board.
Can you tell us what estuaries those cover?
Whoops.
Certainly. These are dealing with the estuaries on the Buzzards Bay side, so dealing with West Falmouth Harbor, a coastal one between West Falmouth Harbor and Wild Harbor, and Megansett Harbor.
I know Ed DeWitt's here and Joanne Morimoto, and I wonder if you could just talk about why you consider this a pre-proposal as opposed to just a proposal, and what do you expect to happen next?
So there is Ed DeWitt from the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, and with me is the APCC senior scientist, Joanne Morimoto, who would actually be overseeing this project. There's this two-step process in obtaining this. These are EPA funds as part of the Southeast New England program, sometimes called SNEP. And the first part is a fairly short proposal of what our concept is. If we get through the first review, then there's a more formal proposal, more budget, more specifics in terms of what we're doing. But as I think you can see from the pre-proposal that we've given you, it's basically fits with your water quality improvement programs. It also is going to help the town forego some costs associated with the so-called MS4 permit, which is the new EPA permit for stormwater management on the Cape. This project would not be eligible if that was part of your MS4 permit, but since we're out ahead of the MS4 permit, this is a $250,000 project. It's going to cost the town not very much in terms of match, and the match is all labor in-kind type services, so no money's going to be owed by the town to carry out the project.
Maybe Dr. Marmoto could give us a 30 or 40 word summary of it, as opposed to this was an 80-page document that I couldn't summarize as well as I'm sure you
You're talking
could.
about the RFP.
Well, the whole package itself was, what
Hi,
do you expect to get?
Can you hear me all right?
Yep, what do you expect to have?
Joanne Bermudo, Senior Scientist with APCC. So the location of this project would be in the watersheds of West Falmouth Harbor, Coastal 1, which is located between West Falmouth Harbor and Wild Harbor, and Megansett Harbor. And all of these embayments are nutrient impaired, including West Falmouth Harbor, which has a TMDL for nitrogen. All four also have important shellfishing areas, and 3 of them have impairments for pathogens, meaning they're suffering from bacteria that could affect or are affecting shellfishing. So this project focuses on developing plans for stormwater retrofitting that is going in after the fact and fixing the stormwater runoff so that the discharge will be cleaner. And the goal is to develop conceptual plans for a number of sites and 75% design plans for 2 priority sites, and also to provide a public workshop on constructing a rain garden and actually installing a demonstration rain garden. The rain garden workshop and construction oversight would be provided by Horsey Witten Pro Bono, and other outreach. So we're proposing to conduct an assessment of stormwater runoff from the 4 watersheds. We'll be calculating discharges and pollutant loads, that is, of nutrients and pathogens. And the purpose of doing that assessment is not just doing science and collecting more facts. We want to use the information to develop conceptual plans for remediation of stormwater at the retrofit sites. These are essentially 10% design plans, and we'll be prioritizing the retrofit sites to help in planning future stormwater construction. You'll notice I keep using the word retrofit sites instead of discharges. I've been told by our consultant to get away from using the word discharges and start thinking about retrofit sites, because the retrofitting means the solution to fixing stormwater. Some of the stormwater fixes may not occur at the end of the pipe. It may be higher in the watershed. And so we're going to be using LID and BMPs, or at least recommending BMPs that are suitable for these retrofit sites as recommendations. And then 2 priorities will be further developed to the 75% design stage with permit preparation but not application. We're hoping to take, in a subsequent stage, if we can help the town get another grant for permitting and construction, that 75% design plans can be taken further to completion. And we provide the outreach on stormwater management, which is really going to be important for the town's MS4 stormwater permit. And that includes also building the demonstration rain garden and rain garden workshop and other outreach. And the goals of this project are to improve and protect water quality in shellfishing, swimming, and habitat by addressing both nutrients and pathogens in stormwater. We've seen from our experience with other programs that some programs will focus only on bacteria, and other programs will only look at nutrients. And this grant opportunity actually asks for projects that can address both. And we think this is a great opportunity for the town. It would help a great deal with capacity building for stormwater management to address the upcoming MS4 permit and TMDLs and the 208 area-wide water quality management plan. We will be meeting with the Water Quality Management Committee later this week. That is, actually Ed will be, I'll be gone, to describe the project and answer questions that they may have, and we'll be looking for their support if we're invited for a full proposal. And I wanted to mention that by our managing the project for the town and on behalf of the town, that saves the town a great deal of project management costs. We're proposing to provide a considerable match in-kind labor to provide project management, and the town would therefore be in an advisory position and help with any heavy equipment to install the rain garden and so on and so forth, and help with survey. So we think that it's this is just a pre-proposal to get us in the door, and hopefully we'll be invited to submit a full proposal with your blessing. We may be back then. So that's it. And have I covered? Yes, I have covered more than I needed to.
No question from here?
Yeah, I have
Yes.
one other question. Since we share Magansett Harbor with Bourne,
Yes.
and Squatigue Harbor is like just at the uppermost section of Magansett Harbor, will Bourne be a part of this at all, at any time, do you think?
No, in meeting with town staff from Marine Environmental Services and Engineering and Conservation and Horsey Whitengard, we looked at the maps of discharges that the Buzzards Bay project had included, which is on the pre-proposal that you see. And I think at this point, given the very short period of time that we had to pull together the pre-proposal, an intermunicipal project right now is not within the scope of this proposal.
Just to give you a sense, there's 150 points that we're looking at in Falmouth, just from West Falmouth Harbor to Magansett. And so there's a sizable number of points that are going to be evaluated. Those are all stormwater discharges.
And we can do what we need to do without having Bourne participate in any way?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thanks.
We think so. There is a stormwater project which was undertaken but not completed for a variety of technical and programmatic issues before in County Road and Magansett Harbor, and it's possible that that might end up being one of the projects, but we'll have to go through the watershed assessment and look at what kinds of BMPs might be possible there. I think to tackle the rest of Squatigue Harbor at this point would require partnership with the town of Bourne, which right now is not within the scope of this pre-proposal.
Well, the last time we wanted to do that, they didn't have the funding, so we moved forward anyway with a previous project, I recall that, so.
Yes, actually, the County Road discharge site into Magansett Harbor is on the Falmouth side, period.
Sam?
I think in reading through your pre-proposal document here, we are limited to Buzzards Bay estuaries in terms of any target studies. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
This RFP is aimed solely at Buzzards Bay.
One other comment, having submitted many proposals, I think I would change your numbers around so that you actually weren't rounding up to 25%, but actually were at 25% or slightly over. I don't know how carefully they're going to
We are over.
document.
We are
Oh.
considerably over the 25%.
Oh, because when I ran my calculator, it was a little bit under, so you probably have different figures than mine.
The total match being proposed, in-kind match, $61,300 over the amount requested. So I think it's 33%. So the reason for trying to provide as large a match as possible is that it gains points for the pre-proposal.
I understand. I read that in the evaluation criteria,
Yes,
so.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to authorize the pre-proposal on Buzzards Bay Area Stormwater Project.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
Next item is to vote to accept the award in the amount of $8,982.99 from the fiscal year 2015 Bulletproof Vest Partnership. It's great that we've been awarded this again. Does anyone have any questions for for Chief Dunn?
Yeah, the chief is here. I was looking. It was in the number of vests that you were ordering. I think it was 29.
It changes from year to year. I believe this year, because we have 11 new officers, we had to order 11 new vests.
Or 23,
And we also have to replace the ones that are within the 5-year. So yes, and this money will help supplement the money that I have in my budget.
And this will make all of the, we'll have all new equipment then. The 23 will bring it up.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
move approval to
Sec-
accept the award in the amount of $8,982.99.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it.
Thanks for the work that saves the taxpayers money here. Appreciate that.
Okay, next we have some documents for the Oddfellows Hall. I think we only have the regulatory agreement and the deed agreement, is that right?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So if you'll see your documents, we still have some issues with the grant agreement, so we cannot do that this evening. The first is a regulatory agreement and executive to execute the certificate of vote. Any questions on the regulatory agreement? I'm just glad we had our town council reading to it, because I understood most of it, but it's glad that we actually had his guidance to make sure it did read the way it should be. I wasn't sure. Anyone from the Falmouth Housing wanted to discuss this before we did a vote? Annie, did you? On the Oddfellows Hall and the regulatory agreement?
I didn't hear your question.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to our discussion or say anything?
I can try to answer it.
Yep.
I have a
Sam?
question. I know that a subordination issue came up in regard to the funding of this project, and if for some reason the project, the parcel had to be liquidated, who would get paid first? Did we resolve that?
The town is in first position.
The town's in the first position. So thank you very much for
You're welcome.
arranging that, because I know it's not easy to do with
No,
lenders.
it's not.
I entertain a motion to approve the regulatory agreement and to execute the certificate of vote.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Patterson, the motion, Mr. Flynn, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Okay, and we're going to have to hold off on the grant agreement for right now. And the next is on the deed of the property of Falmouth Housing Trust.
When you say hold off, you mean for another meeting? or-
Yes, we'll have to refer this to a future meeting because we still have a few issues with
Let
that
you know where to
document.
file this.
And this is the approval of the deed of the property to the Falmouth Housing Trust. Any questions?
Has the deed been reviewed by town council?
Yes.
And the motion to approve the form of deed?
It's to approve the deed itself. And to sign it.
Okay, so moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, just for the sake of the citizens watching at home, can we have an interpretation of a quitclaim deed in this particular case? For my edification as well? this suggests that we're actually giving the property to the Falmouth Housing Trust. Is that the case?
That's my
That's
understanding.
my understanding as well.
Yep.
Okay.
The way this property was proclaimed as, the first step in this process is for it to be declared as
Excess
Okay.
inventory.
excess inventory. That was declared a few years ago, and then this was approved by town meeting for us to do this, and this is now the last process in actually transferring it to, we can't transfer any land to a developer or to a private entity until it's been declared excess or surplus land. Once it's a surplus land, it then is available to be transferred to somebody else, but until it's surplus, it isn't. And so that's for any land that gets transferred in the future to a developer. That very first step we have to do is to have land declared surplus. Yep.
Gonna follow up, I mean, I did receive one inquiry from someone about preserving that building as a historical site. Supposedly, Catherine Lee Bates went to elementary school in that building, and we're just essentially turning it over to the Falmouth Housing Trust without any kind of historical preservation restriction on it. And I just would like to see some sensitivity toward the importance of that building, and at least making sure that, that sensitivity is carried on with the new owners of the building. So I think that's a legitimate question, given the historical significance of the structure. I personally like the idea of being able to use it for, a productive use, but I'd like to see it also somehow restore its historical significance, and that be obvious to people who might come by and actually see the structure.
It is a question that's been pursued quite a bit. I know, Heather, do you
Yeah, I
want
think it's just helpful to put this in perspective. All of the items you see on the agenda here this evening are the very last steps, probably 999 of 1,000 steps that the town and the Falmouth Housing Trust have collaborated in over the better part of 3 years to bring this project to closure. The last piece is this grant agreement. The project, with the oversight of the town, has been through every regulatory process it needs to go through. It has a comprehensive permit assigned to it, and is prepared to close and move forward to construction imminently. So those issues of whether the town is seeking to have a restriction on it, those decisions have been made and reviewed and approved previously by this board.
I will say that we are going to rehabilitate the building, and we are going to keep the historic character. We did receive permission from this board, I think 2 years ago, to use alternative substances in that rehabilitation, because of course it's covered with vinyl siding now, not too historic. And then underneath that is a lot of lead paint, asbestos, and some other probably lovely things we have yet to find. So it's a big project. We are going to, the mass of the building, so when you talk about historic architecture, the mass of the building is going to remain the same. The only additions will be 2 little means of egress on either side that will look like covered porches, and one side will have a ramp. Does that
Yeah, thank
make you
you.
feel better?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Nancy Hayward. Until the end of June, when I was term limited, I was a member of the Falmouth Historical Commission. And I'm sorry to say that I missed the selectmen's meeting when all these permissions were given for ignoring many of the recommendations related to the historic character of this property. I watched it from home. Not the place to be when you need to make a comment. So I understand all the materials issue and that sort of thing. I understand that this is going to be put to a good use, and I'm very pleased with that. I think that somewhere there should be some acknowledgement, and I don't know if there was any community preservation money put forth to this project, this building at all. I do know that Eric Dre, the preservation consultant for the Community Preservation Committee, had written a document relating to how the building should be restored. And these were the issues that were completely ignored. But I do think there should at least be some acknowledgement in a plaque or a sign or something on this building about its prior historic character. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for letting me speak.
Any other questions from the board? Any other comments?
Can I just respond to that real quick, I promise? The Housing Trust is certainly open to working with the town to commemorate some sort of plaque on the public land. It's actually an odd site. A lot of the land in the front of the hall, which you would assume would be the hall's property, is not. So maybe we'll be back here at a later time, all having fun on another Monday night, and we can talk about what we can do to, I think you want to acknowledge, Nancy, that Catherine Lee Bates went to school there, and it was a village schoolhouse, and it was moved back, and those kinds of things. We can work on that together, probably at the end of the project when the construction fencing comes down.
Great.
I believe we have a motion and a second already. A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Ayes have unanimous.
Thank you.
Next is to approve the shellfish regulations. And we have Chuck Martinson here to discuss with us about these. And again, it's fairly extensive. Could you at least give us the major changes that might be going on that you're suggesting as opposed to
Sure.
going
Thank
through
you so
page
much
by
for
page?
having me this evening. As you stated, the majority of these are boilerplate and very similar to what we've done in past years. The only real change that I'd point out is on, which should be your final page, there's a shellfish gear restriction, and it's for Green Pond, Quistit Harbor, and West Falmouth Harbor. I believe it should be the last one again in your packet. And the reason why why we're requesting that, we did it last year in the areas where we relayed shellfish from Little Pond to the three areas, and we're requesting to just use that same terminology and restriction in the areas where we move shellfish this year. It's just essentially to protect the oysters, the large amount of oysters that we're moving out of Little Pond into these areas, into Green Pond, Quistit Harbor, and West Falmouth Harbor. All the other regulations, again, are consistent with what we've done in past years, and there's no other changes besides that.
And just to clarify what I read, in those areas, there are going to be buoys marking
Correct.
where those restricted areas are.
Those areas will be marked off specifically.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Patterson?
Again, for the sake of our audience, what's the purpose of the change in the gear?
The purpose for the change in the gear is the heavier gear, the bull rigs and jerk rigs, will actually go through and kill the oysters. They're pretty rough on the oysters, particularly the smaller ones. So we want to hold back on that just to protect those animals.
Any other questions from the board?
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
I think this is actually when we get stamped, but. It's on the first page, I believe. All right, next are some special events. We have two recurring events. One is the Sea to Shining Sea Charity Walk on Fairwinds Peg Noonan Park, October 3rd, 2015. The only concern I have about this one is the rain date is for October 4th, 2015, and we do have a new event that's also being proposed of a walk. They're not in the exact same location, but very close to overlap, and I did have a concern about those two. If it does rain on the first date, that we may have that conflict. So before we approved the first one and then had to worry about the second one, I just wanted to raise that issue or that question.
Chief is here, I don't know if he's aware of the routes.
Okay. I think you, so the first route is leaving Pegnan Park, Main Street, Shore Street, Surf Drive, bike path, Locust, Main Street, and back to Pegnan Park. And the other one actually is closer to the Marine Park and Van Shell. Chief, I think you've had a chance to, it has come through your office that they're having these routes. Do you think there would be a problem if they ended up being on the same day? One of them, I think, is at 8:30 to 12 o'clock, and the other one's 9 to 1, so the timing is about the same.
Time's about the same. I mean, the routes are close, but I believe we could handle it.
Okay. And the first route's predicted to be about 40 people, and the next one's about 100, so they're both fairly small events. Okay. I just want to make sure we considered where we're overloading.
I know that they all seem to fall on the same day, but I believe because of the size of the events, I think we could be able to handle those.
Okay. All right, any other questions on the Shining Sea Charity Walk for Fairwinds?
No? Move approval? Second.
A motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it unanimous. Next item is the Lennon Fest at the British Beer Company in Falmouth Heights Ball Field. This is October 11th, 2015. This will be the 10th one of these, and this is a fundraiser to benefit the Falmouth Service Center.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Do we have something from the audience?
Is there anyone here from this organization?
I'd like to give a little public service announcement about it.
It's a great cause.
I was just thinking about the number of people and the parking. If you look on their formal application, they expect 200 people and they're going to have 5 vehicles. I know there's some parking, especially at that date, but there's no one here to answer that. I mean, is everyone just walking, or they're dropped off, or?
I think a lot of people are because of the small area down at the Heights. There isn't any place to park down there anyway, so probably
On
they
the
find
beach
a way
there
to
is.
get
There
there.
definitely is on the beach, yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, there is some feedback from John Lyons that basically says that this event has been held previously, and I am not aware of it creating any issues for this department, so I assume that would include parking issues, but perhaps the chief would add anything if there is an exception.
Okay.
Move approval?
Motion and a second to approve for Sunday, October 11th.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. And then a new event is the Making Strides Against the Breast Cancer Walk. It starts and finishes at Marina Park, and this is October 4th, 2015. It is a 2-mile walk. They're expecting about 100 people.
I move approval.
Second.
Do we have anyone from this organization who wants to
Good.
give a little plug for it? Since you're here.
Nicole Dowd, American Cancer Society. This is our first event here in Falmouth, which we're extremely excited. We also have our 6th event in Barnstable this year, which is going to be the 18th of October. However, this year we're really hoping to make it a very community-focused walk. So if anybody would like more information, please feel free to reach out to us on our website. Or if you do have any questions coming up, all my information is available. Great. Have a good evening.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Okay. Why did you choose Falmouth?
Mostly because it's beautiful. The spot we have in Barnstable, it's fantastic, but logistically it's a little bit tough right in front of the courthouse. Here in Falmouth, Marina Park, the parking itself, the location, the area to walk, it's a beautiful area. Plus, when we did our demographic surveys and we pulled our reports, for some reason, the Outer Cape is missing. We're able to pull a lot of people from Barnstable, Yarmouth, Hyannis, even Sandwich and down into Sagamore. But Falmouth, Mashpee, this whole kind of outer Cape were kind of missing. So we wanted to engage more people, and Cape Cod Healthcare is also a big supporter of ours, and we're working with them to really pull the Falmouth Hospital into it as well. So I thought it'd be a good
Do the
location.
people utilize any of the hotels or motels or restaurants while they're here?
That, most of our participants are actually local, since it is obviously off-season. Anybody that does come in, we do have a few families that do it, so a lot of their friends and family from out of state tend to stay local. But it does tend, because it is such an early morning walk, we are typically done cleanup. Everything's completely done by 1 o'clock. A lot of people go out for lunch in the afternoon. So if they're walking down Main Street and they're seeing all these wonderful restaurants, a lot of them will walk right back to them. Even in Barnstable, there's a Nirvana Cafe. It's a coffee house right across from the courthouse. A lot of folks, even though they don't eat coffee, they will go into Nirvana afterwards and, partake in their wares and their coffee and snacks and things as well. So I'm sure it'll happen here. And we promote it as well. We also, like I said, we want to make it as community focused as possible. So we like to promote the community.
We had an applicant who sent in their application from Colorado, and I have never forgotten about what they bring to Falmouth. So when I ask, and we have a lot of special events in Falmouth, a lot. And I think our residents are very patient. I think that whether you're on a bike or you're walking or you're running or whatever, there are many residents that it is an inconvenience, and it does happen. But on the other hand, Falmouth would always like to endorse and welcome anyone, but I just look at the other side and say, what is it that you're also bringing to Falmouth when you use our town?
Absolutely. We do promote it via social media. We all, of course, American Cancer Society, New England Division, which is obviously encompassing New England, does put out press releases regarding all the new walks. And then because Making Strides, everybody considers October to be Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but it is a year-round fundraising opportunity. We continue to promote the areas and the communities that they're in throughout the year. So there is that little added benefit, but we definitely, our biggest promotion here in town is that we are creating awareness and education for the residents to be aware of the items and opportunities that American Cancer Society has in terms of programs and outreach for victims of breast cancer. In Massachusetts alone, there'll be close to 4,000 documented cases of breast cancer, and this year we're unfortunately projected to lose about 700 people to that fight. So with the added benefit of awareness and early detection and education, and we have things like Reach to Recovery, which people are able to utilize, which do one-on-one with a local resident who is afflicted with the same type of breast cancer, so that you have somebody to talk to. We have Road to Recovery, which allows for rides to and from your appointments. And we also have lovely programs like Look Good, Feel Better, which helps female cancer victims cope with the physical effects of treatments such as chemo. So it's a lot of awareness and education in the communities that we're bringing to the community, as well as promoting the community overall.
Thank you.
No problem.
I did have one question about the entertainment. It talks about the radio station playing music at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning,
It will not be loud, I promise.
but it will be outside speakers broadcasting out into the bandshell area.
Yes, it will. CODCOM, it's Stephanie Viva from Frank FM. She is coming down with one other radio personality. Not a large setup, it's typically about 2 speakers on either side of the small stage. And they'll be playing light entertainment in the morning. Myself and one other person will be doing very brief speeches. And then it will be playing light music while others walk, and some people tend to stay back and wait for their friends and family, those that are uncomfortable walking. Will participate in our day of activities, and then at the end of the day, we do yoga cool down, and then it's all done.
It is an area in which we have had complaints about
The noise?
noise, so
Great.
just to be aware of that. And we'll hear about it if it's louder than they want it to be very quickly.
Will do. I'll make note of that. Thank you.
Any questions or concerns from the board?
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
All right, on to our business. The first is to vote the articles, oh, sorry, no, we have a beach wedding ceremony for September 27th, 2015. This is at the Surf Drive Beach and Parking Lot, Nicole Gabai. For about 25 cars. And expect to be there for about a half an hour.
I move approval.
Second?
I just have one question.
Yep.
Is there anyone here? Nicole, or anyone? The time needed for parking vehicles is 11:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., but everything that is concerning the ceremony finishes at 12:30 p.m. I'm just asking about that. No one can answer that.
It does also say in the application, we are a small group and we'll be off the beach fairly quickly, about a half hour total.
I read that.
The parking lot is open at that point anyway, so we're not monitoring it. So even if we change it, say 11:30 to 1, there would be nothing to prevent them from keeping their cars from 1 to 6 anyway. Nor do we actually hold these spots for them. So if the lot is filled by 11 o'clock in the morning on September 27th, and there's no space for those cars, we're not guaranteeing that they're going to have the spaces either. So I don't think we particularly need to worry about that time of it. Any further questions? Entertain a motion to approve?
Done. We've already done it.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. All right, next item, to vote the articles and execute the warrant for the November 2015 town meeting. I'll remind everyone that this is not really where we discuss the articles, it is just to create the warrant. These are the articles that have been put forward either by petition, by departments, have come through the town manager's office, and are the recommendation that we put these articles on the warrant from the town manager's office. There are a few articles that have not been recommended that would be appropriate for us to discuss. We, of course, it is our warrant, and we can choose to add articles at this time if we so determine. But at this point, really what we often do is go through page by page and say that we're going to put the articles that we have in front of us on the warrant. It is also the time if we want to change a numbering of articles that we would need to do so. And so I would suggest that we first go through page by page, then consider the articles that were not recommended if we want to, and then if there are any changes in numbering we might want to do, we could do that. So that would be the order I would suggest. And so, Ms. Moran, if you would be good to take us page by page in recommending that we put these articles on the warrant.
Certainly.
I would move Articles 1 through 4.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second to add Articles 1 to 4 to the warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it.
That takes us through 1 and 2.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, did you want the articles read so that the audience?
No.
No. All right, make a motion for approval of Articles 5 through 12.
I'll second.
A motion to put Articles 5 through 12 on the warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it.
Make a motion for Articles 13 and 14 to go on the warrant.
Second.
Articles to add 13 and 14 to the warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. And just actually in deference to your question, I think for us to read the language of this out loud would go, certainly if I were listening to beyond what I could possibly understand being read out loud.
Just on subject matter, but sure.
Yeah.
And to clarify, these will be posted on the website, so anybody that's curious to actually go through them themselves, they will be publicly available.
They'll be posted on the website, they have to be published in the paper, they'll be...
And it's probably important to say, we're just simply voting to put them on the warrant. The next step will be to take them article by article to
Make recommendations.
make recommendations, once we have the recommendations. And then we'll get into more in-depth, and we can still remove an article at that time.
Well, not remove it. We can
Well,
recommend indefinite
well,
postponement, but it stays on
yes,
the article on
right.
the warrant. Okay, we're on page 5 now.
Yes, I make a motion for Articles 15, 16, 17, and 18 to be on the warrant.
I have a question.
Second.
I had a question regarding Article 16. And it reads, if you look at it, the title is Closure of Streets for Recreational and Other Purposes. And then the first paragraph states that the Board of Selectmen may order the closure of any public way or part thereof in the town except a state highway, parkway, or boulevard to vehicular traffic for such period of time as the board may determine for the purpose of promoting recreation, play, or sport. And I brought that up today with the town manager because I felt that the naming of the article says recreational and other purposes, and the language really restricts it to promoting recreation, play, or sport, and it doesn't allow any other purpose. So I was going to suggest that we amend it so that the sentence ends with the word determine. In other words, for such period of time as the board may determine, period, and not add for the purpose of promoting recreation, play, or sport.
The reason why it is appropriate to have this discussion at this time is this is an article that is being put forward by the Board of Selectmen. So for us to put forward it written the way we want to is appropriate to discuss the wording of what's being put on the warrant, as opposed to even discussing
The merits of the
merits of the article itself. But the wording of it, I think, is very appropriate for us to have that discussion.
And because the title says other purposes, but it really constrains the purposes to 3 things. And we close streets for purposes other than recreation. We close it for the Arts Alive, we've closed it for block parties, I suppose you could call that recreation, but it's all in how you define it. So it would seem to me to be able to refer back to the language that says in other purposes by not specifically stating any purposes, we leave it open for the board to determine what we wish to close the street for and not be constrained by it.
My only concern is that a title of an article doesn't restrict what you can do. And that this will allow us to shut it down for 3 years for any reason whatsoever. And so I guess I would almost, if we wanted to say promoting recreation and other purposes.
I would have no problem with that if you said and other purposes.
I guess that still is true.
I think it's very restrictive when you.
I agree.
So.
Well, I would agree to that change.
Just
part of
leave
the
it
motion,
off.
because I think it's valid, and, we've gotten requests from the Falmouth Business Association to actually close the street. We didn't approve it, but there may be an occasion when we want to have a parade, and we need to close the street, and it's not necessarily recreational.
So we close the street for the Christmas parade, and does that fit into those categories? So
And
the
what
idea is
happens is, we get ourselves all tied up in the language,
Right.
and then the language just curtails what we can do, and that language is, I think, too specific.
So the suggestion is to
And
put a
restrictive.
period at determine and
That's my
eliminate the
suggestion.
rest of it.
Yep.
Rebecca?
I just look at it, there's 2 places that it says other purposes. It says in the article, recreational and other purposes. Then it starts, closure of streets for recreational and other purposes. It says it twice. If the other purposes are only recreation, play, and sport, but it doesn't say only. It says other purposes twice. And if they're giving an example of what it could be, it does not require that it be recreation, play, or sport. If it's twice that it's stated other purposes.
I only see,
No, it's only small.
It's up in the and then go down into the 3rd line, and you'll see it again.
I don't see it again.
Well, she's saying in the articles, when you
Oh, I'm
describe Article
suggesting
16,
that we take it out.
but she's saying in Article 16, which was on the warrant, it mentions other purposes, and then the article itself is as follows. So we have a motion and a second to put a period at determine and then eliminate the phrase after that.
I'd like to have more discussion.
Sure.
Your comment was correct. It is too wide open to just say, to end it without the purpose. Otherwise, it changes the meaning of the intent of the article, and it doesn't restrict it to recreation, because you're correct, you can't go by just the heading. The way to accomplish both of the goals would be to end it at recreation, because the intent of the article is for recreation, and you really don't need to confuse it by adding play or sport. That can be included within the definition of recreation.
So where would
Well-
the street fair on the July 11th fall?
Well, I think recreation is just limit it to recreation is just too specific, because we close streets for other reasons. And you can't really specify what all the reasons are, but recreation is one of the major reasons we close a street, but there are other purposes too. And I thought the language in the article itself was too constraining in terms of what we could do. If it says the board may determine for the purpose of promoting recreation, play, or sport, it limits it to anything else. And sometimes that's the kind of language you get caught up with legally. Even though the title says for other purposes, the language actually limits it to those three purposes.
In the first sentence, you could say recreation and other purposes, but I think it's probably, still doesn't address everything that you want to address.
Sam?
Can I ask the question? I didn't write this article, but why was the article written? If we understood what the purpose of the article is, I assumed it was a housekeeping thing to allow the board to actually authorize the closures of
That's
streets.
my understanding.
Right.
So which meant that it should be very broad as to what we determine would be an appropriate
Yes.
time to close the street. We've actually turned down requests
Requested.
to close streets because we didn't think it was necessary, and it disrupts business and traffic flow. So I think keeping it broad is what we really are looking for, but just gives us the authority to do this when we think it's appropriate.
In
My
that
point,
case, change the
exactly.
heading to closure of streets, and then end it as the board may determine.
I
And don't
would
even-
agree with that.
Yeah, just simply even
Say
leave
that-
out
say that again.
recreation.
So on Article 16 at the very beginning, by adding a new Article 5, closure of streets, period.
Period.
I think that's better.
Then Article 5, closure of streets. And then Section 189-8 is that for such period of time as the board may determine, period.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's my motion.
second.
Okay. So we have a motion second for those changes to Article 5, or to Article 16, as it's currently going in the warrant. All right? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Then we also had a motion already on the floor to add Articles 15 through 18 to the warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. And that takes us up to
Well, 18.
page 11. On page 11, we have Articles 19, 20, and 21.
19, 20, and 21.
Those for your all petition
These are all
articles.
petition
so
articles.
Petition articles.
There's really no discretion on those.
Okay, I move approval of Articles 19 through 21.
So we have a motion
Second?
second to add Articles 19 and 21 to the warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Page 12. These
There
are
are
also
two-
two petition articles also?
Yes, they are.
Right, make a motion to include Article 22 and 23 on the warrant.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Page 13. Article 24 is a petitioner article, so we can just take that separately, just to be consistent. We're putting petitioner articles on, and because we do not have the jurisdiction to do anything but that.
Make a motion that Article 24 go on the warrant.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to add Article 24 to the warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Articles 25 through 39 are all community preservation articles, all put on forward by the Community Preservation Committee. So
I
we
move
have to
approval.
do a motion to add Articles 25 through 39 to the warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. And Article 40 is on request of the jointly of the Board of Selectmen and the Community Preservation Committee.
And we said through 39.
I did this as 25 through 39.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did 2 pages.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
My
I move
error,
approval
apologize.
of Article 40.
Second.
We have a motion to add Article 40 to the warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Then we have 2 articles that were submitted but not recommended by the town manager at this time. And so I would turn to the town manager, assistant town manager, to at least have a brief discussion of that to make sure that we have considered them and vetted them. The first was to consider at this time an article to appropriate some money for the design and engineering services for a new senior center, including the costs, and this has been a request, the Council on Aging has asked us to put this forward, but since it's also upon our request, it is up to us to determine whether we think this is the best time to put this forward or not. We have not determined a site yet for the senior center. We won't be hearing a report on that not until October, and that's when we'll get our first report. I don't think we're making our decision at that immediate meeting. I think there's a good deal of work that still needs to be done before we do that, and I know I'm a little concerned about going to town meeting with a partial idea of what we're going to do when we're asking for this kind of money for the design and engineering services. But I'm certainly happy to hear from other members of the board. I'm not sure either of you want to add anything to the discussion at this point.
I think the only other additions are that we haven't funded through the capital improvement plan the amount of funds that would be necessary to raise to fund the designer process. The full design is 10 to 15% of the total construction cost. So you could be looking at something like $800,000 or more taken out of available funds at this town meeting, with the likelihood that they wouldn't be expended until much later in the year. So you'd be sitting on funds raised but unexpended. And so that's sort of a financial concern outside of the sequence of events. What we have proposed is to partially fund the owner's project manager in the capital improvements plan, which you'll see at the next meeting of the board. And that is required prior to the engagement of an architect. Chapter 149, the construction bid laws, requires the town to bring on an owner's project representative prior to selecting an architect and going through the designer selection process. So that's the next appropriate step. We feel comfortable that partial funding of that in November will allow us to keep the momentum moving along appropriately. You can certainly develop the specifications for an architect, even procure the architect subject to appropriation in April. So there's plenty of work to be done between now and April.
So my understanding is that we're not going to lose any time moving the project forward by not having it on the article. I mean, not having the article on the November town meeting, and we won't gain any. We won't lose anything, and we really won't gain anything by doing it. In fact, we won't really have all the information we need by then anyway, in order to know what the exact amount would be. That's my understanding. So it isn't going to hold up anything if it's not on this town meeting.
I don't think it's going to hold anything up, but I think that there is a feeling there's a great deal of momentum going forward to the senior center. So this is the right time to ask for the money because the momentum's there. I'm confident that we can get the momentum to be even bigger. That once we have even more detailed plans, we have a site selected, and we're all behind the site, that we can even have a greater chance of success. I mean, I'm very confident that this is going to succeed no matter when we do it, but I think it's going to succeed even with a greater deal of support of the entire town and town meeting if we do it with the plans in front of us when we come for town meeting.
So there's every prospect of gaining momentum without doing this as the project moves along.
I personally
and
believe
we move it along. We
Right.
make sure it moves along, and that it doesn't be held back for any reason.
Sue?
I have a slightly different view. I think that there is already enough momentum. I think that this has been a long time coming, and that I'm a little more concerned with keeping the construction timetable. And Heather, as to your explanation in terms of funding and appointing is it a project manager? And then the architect, could you give me a little bit more detail?
Yeah.
Because I'm concerned that at least maybe we get some design going so that folks can, we can, promote what the building is going to look like. I think just so that there's an understanding.
The owner's project manager does not perform designer services.
Does the architect?
The architect that you have engaged will provide a feasibility level schematic plan. You'll have 3, and hopefully you'll pick one.
That's what I'm interested in. So what would the timing be for that if we don't at least move the design aspect of this article?
You've already funded the schematic design. So the feasibility level design, which is concept level design, what does a building of that size look like on that site? Not a rendering, but a footprint, you funded, along with the Council on Aging and the Friends of the Falmouth Senior Center, have funded the feasibility level design. So you'll have a sense of the scale and massing of a structure on any one of the 3 sites that will be presented to you in October.
Thank you.
Rebecca?
I think I'm on that same wavelength that you're talking about. I think there has been a lot of quiet time, and sometimes you think nothing at all is happening because we're not hearing anything. And the thought that maybe it was going to move to April, I see all the advantages of April, but I also have the feelings of the discussion that things were probably going to start to happen in November. But there's logical reasons why it is better for it to start in April. I think that once the decisions of the 3 locations, and that it had the momentum to keep moving, but we're running too close to November, that there isn't really any great benefit, that we need to wait until April?
My reluctance is to get this report from the consultants, the feasibility report, mid-October, and know we have to make a decision. I would want to have that decision way before town meeting so that we can really get the word out there what our decision is and where we're going forward.
Okay.
And I'm not sure we have the time to get that done so that when this vote's being done on November town meeting, everyone knows full well what site we've chosen, the support, the reason why we've chosen that site, what the basic premise is going to look like. But, if the timing is seen as an advantage, saying, yep, we get the report in mid-October, 2 weeks later you guys make a decision, 2 weeks later we have town meeting vote for it, it is our decision to put this article on or not. Tim?
I just want to remind you that we need the school committee involved in this as well. And I can tell you, because I've just attended the school committee meetings, they're going to be well into the budgeting process, because that's what's required. They have to get all this done. So, it's going to be tight, and we need a period of time to coordinate with them, because there's going to have to be an agreement to turn over property, and then there's going to certainly have to be some significant discussions about integration of activities on that common campus. So that's another piece that needs to be taken care of. And I think, once the conceptual plan and the recommended site is identified, then I think then it's going to make things real and people begin to think about the details that need to be worked out.
And one thing to make sure everyone understands about the timetable is many of the sites we're considering are going to require replacement of an athletic field.
Absolutely.
And if we require replacement of an athletic field, we need to get the new field, which is a 2-year plan, up and running before we can actually start construction of the senior center. And so many of these plans, the time saying, oh, we need to get going on this thing, we could have this funding, we could have the funding for it, but we really aren't going to be breaking ground on many of the plans we're looking at. All the ones at the high school, we go there, we know we're going to have to wait at least 2 years before we can put our shovel in the ground for the senior center. And so that's where I really want to make sure that we're moving at the right pace, but.
Heather had something.
No, I think you hit the
Okay.
issue.
Sue?
Okay, I am having trouble reconciling, the process of moving ahead with the senior center while these things are going on. I think we can do both, and I'm wondering if we can at least separate and appropriate a sum of money just for the design so that it's there, because we really have 6 months between this town meeting and the April town meeting. And if we don't appropriate at least some money for design, then I think the community outreach and the opportunity for folks to see what's going to happen here, we might be a little bit delayed over that 6 months.
Yeah, I wouldn't separate the engineering from it. I think
Yeah.
design and engineering fit too closely to each other. So if you want to do that, I would leave it for design and engineering, because you may have the same firm doing both of those. I would. Heather?
If I'm following Chapter 149 correctly, the town's required to have the owner's project manager in place prior to engaging an architect. Hiring an owner's project manager is the same procurement effort. Means we have to write an RFP, we have to put it in the central register, we have to advertise it for 3 weeks, we have to recruit the appropriate firms, we have to get a team together, we have to interview them, we have to engage in a contract. We're talking about 3 or 4 some months period just to get the owner's project manager on board. And then you start your work with your owner's project manager, you work out some of these details, and then you can advertise for your architect. So you're talking, throw Thanksgiving and Christmas in there, which you try not to advertise this type of bid in that time frame. Try to do that January 1. You're really not losing time, a month at most, and I think that's probably ambitious.
Rebecca?
I'm glad you said that. I didn't understand anything of that timeline. I thought we were having void time
Not really,
waiting
no.
for April.
I don't see
So
big
it's-
voids.
Okay, all right. That's good for me to hear.
Okay, any other
Okay.
discussion on this article? Okay, the other article is having to do with voting to transfer care and control of, this is the property dealing with the Spring Bars Road parcel, making sure it's available to a developer, as we're trying to develop that for affordable housing. This is something that does need to happen before we can go ahead with the affordable housing. First, what needs to happen is the land needs to be declared as being surplus, and this is the reason why I brought up the same issue with the Oddfellows Hall. And we need to make sure we do that before we can even vote to transfer it. And I'm not sure if the timetable is exactly right to do this. I think the surplus is something that we certainly need to do first before we go into this step. Sam?
Yeah, I'm actually the one that requested this article, but in really discussions with the town managers, the reason for it was because I was concerned that nobody would respond to an RFP because there wasn't a commitment to actually make the property available. And so who was going to put out the money to develop a proposal, which can be quite costly, when in fact there's no commitment to turn over the land for that project. I've been assured that in fact with declaring it as surplus land, that's a sufficient commitment so that bidders will respond to the RFP. So I guess I'm comfortable with not including it at this point, but probably putting it into the warrant for April.
Just to clarify, it is the Board of Selectmen that declares the property surplus. Town meeting does not have to take that action. So you can place an agenda item on your agenda, declare the property surplus. That must happen before an RFP is issued.
Oh.
If you choose to have town meeting take that action, you'd have to wait to issue the RFP until after November 9th.
All right, any other discussion on these articles? Okay. Any thoughts on numbering? I noticed that we have the petitioner's articles. Yep, Heather?
I just have one. Just in discussion this morning, Article 3 is the rezoning of the landfill, which relates to, this is again sequence of events, use of the landfill parcel.
Right.
You have Articles 13 and 14 that ask the town to vote to use the property for the purposes, and we recommend that the zoning follow that determination. So I'd move Article 3 to after Article 14, and then renumber from there.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I did have one question, because as I was reading it, looked to me like with the article about the ground, Article 12 was allowing photovoltaic properties in a wider range of zones.
And that will precede this discussion.
And if we passed Article 12, we would not actually need to rezone
Under Article,
under
new Article
Article 3.
15.
Right?
Right,
Okay.
you got it.
So you're suggesting putting Article 3 after Article 14?
Correct.
And changing all the numbers after? Okay.
Yes.
Great. So the motion is to move Article 3 after 14 and renumber other articles as it seems appropriate.
I move that change.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. We do have a number of petition articles, which are before the CPC articles. So they're starting everything. A few of them were earlier on with the, dealing with the landfill, and then Article 19 and 20 and 21 are the other petition articles. Was there any interest in moving those around, or are you comfortable with those being where they are? Typically, we do try to put the zoning articles earlier on in the warrant, and that's where they are.
I don't think they really have a lot of significance to the articles that are already there. Sometimes you try to put them closer to an article that is similar, but I don't think these are very similar.
Yeah, I couldn't see any close relationship between them and other ones being asked.
I don't have the crystal ball to
the
foresee
numbering
reasons
was-
for changing.
Numbering was
Right.
pretty good this year. Yeah.
Unfortunately, what will still happen is the most important article to someone will end up being the last article of the night, and say, why did you unnumber it that way? But
Exactly.
Well, you know, Article 21, and I know that we have the option of taking these off if we choose.
that's
Article-
that's a petitioner's article, so we don't.
What?
Article 21 is a petitioner's article?
Well, yeah, but the issue with Article 21 is, well, I'll tell you what it is. It's to approve, town vote to approve the following non-binding resolution. Well, it's a non-binding resolution anyway, regarding divestment of the public pension funds from fossil fuel companies. There are issues around that, but that can come up at town meeting, I guess.
Any other items on the warrant to discuss? Rebecca?
We didn't need any type of a vote for the articles that are submitted and not recommended.
Nope. It would only if we wanted to submit them, we'd have to vote to put them on, but. Next item is a presentation of the Consolidated Communications Center location alternatives from our consultants that we've hired. I think we're going first with Castle Boots Associates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Assistant Town Manager Heather Harper is going to make a couple introductory remarks, if we may.
So I can get the blood back in our bones first. I
Rebecca?
adjusted the heat, I hope.
Excuse me?
Yes, we are, but that's
Well,
later.
then, that's going to be later. We're doing consolidated communications.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just by way of brief introduction, I'd like to introduce both firms just briefly so you know who you're meeting with this evening. You have two reports, one from Kessel Booth, an architectural firm from Massachusetts, and they've done over 60 projects, either feasibility studies or full design for public safety buildings, police stations and fire stations throughout, over 30 in Massachusetts and another 30 within the region. They came very highly recommended, and we were very delighted to have Michael McKeon and his team respond to our invitation for this very small scope of work, so we're pleased to have him here. And I also want to recognize IXP, who will be here as well in follow-up, and they're our technical consultants. They're here from New Jersey, but come with very strong references in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, working with Metropolitan Area Planning Council, with the towns of Hingham, Hull, Cohasset, and Norwell, as well as working in Danbury, Connecticut, and some of the boroughs of New York. So Jeanette and Mike, Jeanette Messer and Mike Ferrari are both here with us this evening. And again, we are very pleased that they're willing to work with the town on what's a very small scope of work with very, very strong credentials. So I want to make sure you all were familiar with those. They were in your reading materials. And I will turn this over. It might take a minute for the projector to get lined up.
I'm not sure, Heather, whether it's the right thing for you to explain the different, I guess, a little more clarity as to
Yes.
why we have two different groups looking at
So
the
they're
same
two
project.
very different issues, and they looked at two different things. One is the physical space. Does it meet the requirements for a consolidated dispatch or consolidated communications department for the town of Falmouth, just from a physical standpoint? The other is the technology piece, and we asked them to take, IXP to take a look at the state-of-the-art technology, best management practices for communication centers, and what's being used throughout the region and the nation in terms of communications technology. What do we have in Falmouth? How do those meet the different needs of the Falmouth departments and those locations, and how do those relate locationally to existing facilities? And just lastly, the specific scope for both firms was to look at the existing dispatch centers in police and fire, and to look at freestanding locations within each of those departments. And so Michael McKeon will start with that in terms of the physical locations. IXP also helped us take a look at what the transition plan might look like from our current dispatch systems onto a new system, if that may need to be moved ahead of the physical location. So that was another little twist on that study. So, Michael, thank you very much for waiting and for being here this evening. I'll advance your slides for you if you need.
Thank you. The first thing that we did was to look at the report that was done by Matrix, and also come up with our own idea of what kind of space would be necessary to implement this project. And we came very close. The 1470 square foot numbers, what we came up with, 1541 was Matrix number. So we're talking about 1,500 square feet, more or less. Next. So with that, we looked at 4 locations in 2 different places, in the fire station and the police station. And one of the first things we wanted to look at is if we had flood issues in either one of them, because resiliency obviously is important in this kind of emergency facility. But we don't really have issues with that as far as we can tell from the flood zone maps. So the first area we looked at was the lower level of the the fire headquarters. And there's not really enough space available. It's less than 700 square feet where the current dispatch area is. It does have some facilities here to be able to put in what the required toilet and break area, but it's really way too small. It's also in an area of a lot of circulation, and this kind of activity really is better off if it's separate from the public, separated so they can not be bothered when they're working, distracted, and also not be a burden for the public to have to go around them. So this area is really too small. The second one was the third level of the fire department, which is currently a exercise area. And while the area is big enough, it's about 1,920 square feet, you can see from the shape of the area and the fact that we have a large mechanical room here and a storage room with a huge duct going through it, that it's very long circulation through it, and you'll see because we did a little plan of it later, really restricts the efficiency of the layout. But again, there is enough space. The third area was the main level of the police station, and of course, again, it's really next to the public, so it not only does it hamper circulation inside of the building, but you are, introducing this distraction to the people working in this area, and it's also too small. This one's about 715 square feet, so it really couldn't go there. The last one is the lower level of the police facility in the rear, and there is enough space available here. This is just a little under 1,500 square feet, and it's a regular space. Also, in looking at the plans of when this addition was built, the sewer, there was a tank in this area when the sewer line was put in. Tank was moved over to here, so the sewer line goes here. So it'd be very easy to put, again, the toilet break area right over that with a minimal amount of work. Next. So we looked at actual layouts. How can we put that program in these spaces? And as you can see, I mentioned that it's long and narrow, and it actually requires us to go through a training room. The training room is not used all the time, so not the best of things, but you could use this for training, cross through it, and then the dispatch area would be back here. It has its own break room and toilet, which is what it should have, according to NFPA 1220. And then the supervisor back here, so he can oversee what's going on. This would be essentially the data network to support, and the radios to support that. Again, not an ideal layout. One of the problems is with these consoles here and here, there's no possibility for, or there's some of the direct eye-to-eye contact is missing. That is important in dispatching functions, to be able to communicate directly with the person next to you, behind you, that sort of thing. So you can make it work, but it's not an ideal layout. Next one is again, the lower level of the police department. Again, as I mentioned, we can put the plumbing right over the existing line. There's enough space for a dispatch room for the four consoles. They're able to be right next to each other. They can share resources more easily. You could have a library in the center that they can draw from. I show a ramp here because you could put a floor, a removable floor there if you need to. I don't really think it's necessary in this case to have a floor. You can, a raised floor, because there's not a lot of possibility of moving these stations around, and we can very easily wire overhead to the data network room here. It gives you the training room. The training room can work separately or in conjunction with this space. Again, the administrator who can look right out, see what's going on, and essentially oversee that. So this works. It's a lot more efficient layout. This actually works in 1,470 or 1,500 square feet, whereas the other one we're up to over 1,900, really closing in on 2,000 square feet. Next, we looked at what it would cost, and this is really based on public construction in Massachusetts, Chapter 149, it was referred to earlier, and based on historic models of what we're seeing renovation like this come in at. Essentially, we believe the probable cost of construction, direct cost, is about $750 million, and also the soft costs, which are detailed here, about $400,000. So this is for option 2, which is the third floor of the fire station. We're looking at about $1.2 million for the architectural part of that. And the next one is the option 4, which is the lower level of the police department. It's a smaller area, and the construction will be a little less. And we're at about $600,000. And the indirect costs are also a little less, so you're looking at a number of just under $1 million for this, $950, $960. Again, these are opinions of probable cost at the level of conceptual detail. It's not a design, although you can see that there is a layout. So the renovation is based on the scope that you see in those sketches. We feel this is a pretty reasonable cost, again, with public bid work done under Chapter 149. And so next is there any questions regarding this? It's pretty straightforward. And it's the architectural and construction part of looking at this. We did not look at any specific equipment needs, technology, anything like that.
Questions from the board? Sam?
Are there any ADA issues related to either of these sites?
Yes, and it's noted in the, well, first of all, it does have to be handicap accessible. The issue in the lower level of the police department is the stair in the rear is not accessible, but it looks like very simply you can build a ramp on the outside and cut a new door in right at the level of the floor, and we carried a number of, I think, $75,000 to do that. The third floor of the fire department, of course, has an elevator, so there is access there.
Is that $75,000 included in your cost estimate for the construction? The ADA for the police department?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't.
You want to go to that?
I'm sorry.
The last slide?
Your affirmative comment is fine. I see it.
Oh, yes. Allow us for handicap access. And we see that as a simple ramp.
Yeah.
What about a generator? Is that
There
included?
are generators at both sites. They, I believe, will handle the load, but again, we didn't develop the actual load based on the equipment that's going there. It looks like, again, if you're not going to run the entire building, normally nowadays, if we design a public facility, public safety facility such as a police or fire, we're looking for a generator that will run the entire building. Maybe it sheds the elevator, which of course would affect the handicap accessibility, but the rest of the building systems will be run on it. That's not the case here. You can't run the entire building, but there is enough to power the radios in this room. You might in the end decide you want to buy a small package unit for this and dedicate it to this. You know, depending on the size, it's pretty reasonable. It may not cost you more than, say, $50,000, $60,000 for that, if you had a dedicated one. They should have in the budget, and I didn't see it in the original study, but I assume they'll be talking about it, a uninterruptible power source inside that will keep you between the time, you know, when you can't afford to let this system, let the communications go down at all. So before the generator kicks in, there's an uninterruptible power source, usually in the data network room that we looked at in the drawing. There are all sorts of prices for that. You can also put them at each individual unit, but that really doesn't, those units don't work as well. However, it's not difficult to maintain continuity of service in the space, as far as we're concerned.
Rebecca?
I'm just going on some previous information. I'm not sure that it is, I don't see it on any of the listings, as there was something about the towers. There had to be some tower next to the building wherever you have your dispatch.
That'll be on the next report.
Pardon me?
That's in the next report.
Oh, my goodness, well,
really
that's why I didn't see it now.
Equipment, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mary Pat?
Employee access. I'm assuming in the fire department, it would be either by elevator or stairwell?
Yes.
But where would it be in the police department? How would
Essentially,
employees
as I
access
said,
this?
we can do a little ramp here with a separate door for handicap and through this stairwell down and, directly into it. So you would park in the back, enter the back. You don't have to go through the main entrance. You really don't have to deal with the public at all. It's more isolated than either of the solutions at the fire department, which is what it should be.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Should we move on to
Okay.
equipment and technology?
Oh, okay.
Good evening. I'm Jeanette Messer and Mike Ferrari. We came on site, we were asked to come on site to look at this consolidation process from a couple of standpoints. One was to look at the facility, and similar to what was done by the architect, to look and see what were the available spaces, and which would be a better place to put the new communication center. And Mike Ferrari, who is an expert on facilities and has configured and helped to build facilities in many other locations, did that work. We approached it by coming on site and talking with police department personnel for the facilities part of it, and with the fire department personnel, seeing the site, going through and looking at what's available. And also, for both parts, we reviewed the matrix report that you had already had done previously. We came to similar conclusions to what the facilities, or what the architect firm came to as well, that the area up in the fire department is just such an irregular space. You would have tight areas of conveyance around the area. Going through your training department for access would be an issue if you're having a training class going on, obviously, and that there would be greater availability of space and more usable space if you use the area in the police department. And any questions that you have from a facility standpoint, Mike will be able to answer those. From the CAD standpoint, I met with police department personnel, including Chief Dunn and a few other people, and also sat in communications and talked with the dispatch personnel and the person who was on duty from the police officer who was on desk duty at the time, to get an idea of how well the system was working, what does it do for them, to understand their CAD system. In the police department, they have TriTech Perform system, which is a widely used system. So we went through what issues do you have with it to get an understanding of how that system is working for them, and just assessing the usability of it. In the fire department, I also met with the deputy chiefs, fire chiefs, and sat also in the communications area and saw all of the work that was done by the dispatcher in that area, which is quite a bit of work, and actually more than what you would typically see a dispatcher do. She or he are working outside of the area of common dispatch activities and have quite a bit. In assessing the CAD systems, you really don't have a CAD system in your fire department. You have something that sort of was built specifically by a company in COBOL. It's end of life, it's not supported any longer, and it isn't an option to be used in your new dispatch center. It also does not include the functionality that you would need for, it basically lacks what is the common functionality of a CAD system. So that we put to rest immediately, and you simply couldn't use that. As far as the Perform system, the TriTech system, it is a widely used system, but there are some issues that were reported by the police personnel and by the dispatch personnel that They may not be major issues, but they need to be followed up with the vendor. You've paid money for the software, it should be working for you, and there are workarounds being done both by the field officers and also in communications that you shouldn't have to be doing. That may be a solution. It may be a good solution. They do offer multi-agency, fire support. You don't have it right now, but you could add that. So the first step that we see taking place with that is to work with your vendor to let them know that you need these issues fixed, and you need to see what they have for fire and analyze how well that works. We'd also recommend that you do a complete requirements definition, because if you want to make sure that you know exactly what you need for this consolidated system, that it's going to meet your needs in the future, and that would allow you to evaluate both your Perform CAD system and any other system if you decide that that one isn't going to work for you. Also, we feel very strongly that you do want to go with consolidation. You don't want to have a separate, area for fire using a different CAD system or even a separate instance of a CAD system. You want to be working with both dispatch organizations working together. You'll get the benefits of only one software package, only having to develop a training plan for one software, one type of software, and also they can work to support each other and more effective use of staff. And one aspect of that is going to be to separate off those tasks that are done by the fire dispatcher and make sure that those go to someone else more appropriate to do those tasks. And the fire dispatcher is really a public safety professional as opposed to handling any other work. So if anyone has any questions, facilities-wise, Mike will answer those, or CAD-wise.
My question, I guess, and I'm really concerned about the numbers I'm seeing here. I'm convinced this may not be the right thing to do, and whether we should not even consolidate, because if it's going to cost us $2 million to do this and we're getting a savings at most $200,000 a year, if we're only doing it for 4 or 5 years and when the sheriff is coming in, it doesn't make sense. Have you guys looked at all, and I thought you talked about the life of the fire station part is we're really we've got a few more months and it could have died at any point.
It could.
But the police station equipment isn't quite as desperate?
The equipment, there are changes that need to be made for performance reasons.
Right.
Right now, you have some issues with the system being so slow that at times they go to paper, just because the system isn't keeping up with the caller. Caller's giving information, and the dispatcher can't get that entered quickly enough. So they're actually going to paper sometimes.
Because we had looked at a price of going with one new system, how much that would cost. I'm wondering, well, what if we went with 2 replacement systems the way we are right now? It's certainly going to be more than that one, but...
You could actually look to see, I think the most effective, the cost-effective way would be to resolve these issues with TriTech.
With the police.
And some of that is going to be related to upgrading, like upgrading some servers, or without going into it, and without bringing TriTech into it, we couldn't really give numbers on it, but your own IT department is well aware that they really should be looking at upgrading the servers that they have right now, and there are some things that they could do to make it more performant. I would also involve the vendor in that, bring them in and ask them, what do you need to do to make the system more performant? How can we configure it a little differently and the most cost-effective way? Then you would be able to also use that same system, purchase also the fire part of it, just for fire dispatch to make it multi-agency. And then train your existing fire dispatchers to use that, set that up with, it can be a temporary sort of, you can use it temporarily and just, wire it so that you can access that system from the fire department and be using a single CAD system, but they would be using it separately. You could, that is an option, and I think that would be your least expensive option.
I don't like it, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask the question. Other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, there was a question about the antenna. I think
Oh,
the
right.
other
Okay.
gentleman wants to
We
address that.
were, after we had already come on site, that issue was raised, and we were asked to have our radio person, we have a radio expert, Neil Bowen, just talk with the county's expert, the Barnstable County Sheriff Department's expert, and see what your current setup is, and to give an opinion about whether you would need to build another tower if you didn't locate the dispatch, the combined dispatch center at the fire department. Our radio expert clearly stated that you don't have to have a tower built. You shouldn't you shouldn't establish where you have your communication center based on its proximity to that tower.
Right. Consolidation, if I may, consolidation can happen regardless of that. With new technologies abound, and if you want us to take a look at that, then we just have to do a little bit more work with regard to an assessment, a complete radio assessment study. But for this particular purpose and this particular scope, consolidation is not dependent on a new tower. And that's the high-level answer to your question.
Thank you.
Because after the long interview that we had with the Barnstable Chief Deputy of Technology Services, very informative on top of it, just as everybody we've met at the town. But the question really just drives in, you do not need a tower to make consolidation work in today's technology. There's other ways that can be done from microwave and wiring and things that Chief Dunn and his people are utilizing, as well as fire rescue people are currently utilizing.
That will be
Thank you.
And you had said in your presentation that consolidation really was the way to go. And well, as I heard it, the recommendation was because you want them using the same software.
Using the same software is a big part of it.
Right.
And also consolidating, because then they're cross-trained, so you can use your personnel far more effectively. And you have one person supervising them. So it just makes more sense that way. You don't have to pay for all that extra software. You don't have to pay for extra training. You've got, if you lose someone, it's not so big of a deal as it is if you've got these two separate groups.
I think you asked earlier, before we even started, what was the difference in our firm and the architectural firm? We're based technical integrators. We work with the architects. We don't step on their toes. They draw the plans. We happen to come to the same conclusions from a facility standpoint. However, we're concerned about how the project gets integrated. What has to happen to make it an operational success? So yes, Mike mentioned, you don't want to involve yourself with the public. It's got to be a little separate, totally accurate. But we go one other level in this degree. Consolidation, we recommend in our report that it actually separates themselves from the current functions of the police or the current functions of the fire department, regardless of where you go. You need separation in that. That's what always happens to make it successful. That's why we were mentioning a separate access point, regardless of what building you go to. The fire department in a beautiful facility that you have, fire rescue, you have areas that can be utilized as kitchens and things. It doesn't work like that. You need to be separate to have your 911 communications, if at all possible, separate from your current operation. So that's what was part of our criteria. The other difference is when we look at it from a technical integration standpoint, if you go to that phase, we look at the equipment. We not only look at the areas that Jeanette is mentioning from a CAD perspective. We look at logging and recording. We look at every area, telephone, network, how many racks you need. That's why we were able to look at your matrix report, take a look and see if your technical box within the box was satisfactory. And what we came up with was very similar to what Mike came up with. It's adequate, it can work, what place is better, and why is it better? And that's really what we delineate in the report. More from an operational standpoint and a technical integration standpoint, just not an architectural standpoint. And then I'll end it. What we weren't charged with was approximating the cost of that.
So I want to, if the police dispatch stayed where it was, and it was just a police dispatch, your recommendation that it's in the wrong place even then. It's still in the way, it's within the public. The right place to put a police dispatch, if it were only a police dispatch, would still be down in the basement, out of the way.
Only under consolidation.
Okay.
You've got enough room for where you are.
Okay.
It's a workable, feasible solution. You've got 2 people. But when we're talking about 4, as we mentioned in the assessment, or Mike's firm mentioned the assessment, you don't have adequate space on that first level. That's why we looked at the lower level, to make it 4 people with the adequate supervision. When you have that, you need break room, you need facilities, your restroom facilities and the like, and that's where you go to the next thing. Now, your other thing that we didn't mention that's in the report, and we had it, is your EOC is currently in your fire department, which is fine. It's a workable situation. So. Questions?
Any other questions? All right, well, certainly we'll be having further discussion about this. We're not going to be making any decisions tonight, but thank you very much for the information.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda, presentation of the town hall design. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board will recall, we have been tasked with consolidation and reorganization of the physical space in Town Hall. We presented those concepts some time ago to the board. Essentially would result in the planning, preservation, and permit issuance within the lower level of Town Hall, integrated to serve the public much better with one-stop shopping than we have now. It would also result in some changes, a lesser amount, significantly lesser amount, to the main floor, to the upper level, a larger amount, and would create a central stairwell to make the entire building much more functional. And we have a presentation from our architect that's going to walk through the current rendition. I should also note that the architect has already met some time ago with all the departments within Town Hall and reviewed their needs, and the proposed design solution is indicative and representative of those needs. We've also met with chairman of the boards and commissions that routinely function within Town Hall. They have also seen these design plans as well and provided their comments. So we're at the point we're bringing back the revised package to the board in anticipation that if the board is comfortable doing so, we would like to move to a town meeting with a request to allow us to move ahead on the first phase of this proposal. So without further ado, I don't know, Heather, if you have any other comments on behalf of the architect before we have them step in.
No, I want to introduce Russ Crockford and Fred Giampietro from Giampietro and Associates. We've been working with on the schematic design phase, and we'll turn it over to them to walk us through the plan, which has been fairly widely distributed, as Mr. Suso mentioned. So welcome. Thank you.
Well, there's also some discussion at all the transition plan. And one of the things that concerns me about what I see in front of me, I don't see how we get from here to there and still run Town Hall.
That would be the next phase of level of effort. This is just, do you like the way it lays out?
Okay.
Do you need the smaller scale color?
I think everyone has them. Probably orient it this way a little bit more, yeah.
We have our own copies, so don't, make sure the audience gets to.
Yeah.
going to speak a little bit.
Yeah, I think Julian stole half of my introduction here.
Just to be clear, if you make sure you introduce yourself, and the microphone you're speaking into is actually for the TV, for the closed circuit TV, and so we can hear you fine no matter what, but please make sure anything you say, you speak into the mic so we can hear at home also.
Okay, fine. Okay, what we have is, we were given a project of doing some redesign of the interior spaces of the town hall to make them more efficient so that the departments would work better together, closer together, the ones that relate to each other, and also for the public to be able to use the facility a lot easier than it is now. For instance, the building department's at one end of the building, the planning board's up on the second floor, and conservation is now the opposite end. When somebody comes in to present a project, they're running all over the building to make their presentation. So one of the things we're trying to do is consolidate that, make it a lot easier to use the building, make the space more efficient. We started off by measuring and verifying the existing layout of the first, second, and third floor plans, and then visiting with each of the department heads to get their input on the spaces that they needed, the storage areas and so forth. And we worked up 3 different designs, presented those to the town manager and others, and we narrowed that down to this final presentation. So with that, I'll hand it over to Russ, who can explain the new floor plan layouts. Thank you.
Will the mic pick me up if I'm over here?
Just
You
turn
can
it
pull it
a
out
little bit.
and hold it there. Russ, yeah.
Karaoke.
All set.
You do have copies of this in front of you. This is the first floor plan, or the lower floor plan, depending on how you want to think about it. What we've done is we've moved, actually flip-flopped the permitting and inspectional services. Has been moved down to the end of the building that has the civil defense room currently, which we felt was an underutilized space. We've brought the planning department down to where the building department inspectional service was. We've also are using this area here, which is just file storage, which was also identified as a underutilized space. Each area here, and one of the things we were trying to achieve is to have a situation where there's always somebody available to answer questions, so the department does not have to close at noontime while people are on lunch. They can stagger lunches. So if one of the administrative assistants for the building commissioner isn't there, there's somebody else that could answer a question, direct that person that might come to the counter during the lunch hour and be able to help them. So we arranged it so there'd always be somebody there present to assist somebody who came versus coming to the closed screen, be back at 1 or something. And that we try to achieve it with both the planning department as well as the building department. So we've created a entrance here directly into this department. This entrance here is the existing entrance that now you come from the lower parking lot in, and we've also added a central entrance here that aligns with the existing stair. And part of that was just to make it a little bit easier for anybody that did come in and parked at the back. They could come right in. If they weren't going to be going to anything in the lower level, it would bring them right upstairs to the main level. There are some changes. We've added new toilet rooms down here. One of the requests we received was for adding some shower rooms. I think occasionally conservation goes out and they're in the marsh and they come back and feel that having a shower room would be beneficial to them, so that's something we added. So we removed the lunch room from this level, and that gave us the space we needed to
redesign these bathrooms, and they are handicap accessible. Another thing we've done here with the preservation consultant, the assistant for that department can sit here and can also be present if somebody does come in the back entrance and needs directions as to how to navigate the building if they're not familiar with it. So there would be a presence here at least a few days a week. I'm not sure how often that would be, somebody would be there. Some areas that currently aren't slated to be changed is the boiler room, even though there is proposal to redo and look at the heating and HVAC systems. We're not 100% sure until that system is designed how much of this could stay or remain, and it may cost, the amount of money to remove it may not be worth what we've gained. Some other things we looked at here, we've added some additional windows along the back to let in some more natural light. We've added some windows over here that would, we have a window well that would be designed here to allow some natural light into this end of the building. So I think that pretty much covers the lower level. Is there any questions?
Just the color, the white is sort of the public space.
Yes, that's public
Circulation,
space,
public
yes.
space. And so the counters for the permitting area is right near the east lobby.
It's right here.
Right, and that could be serviced by, as you said, 5 or 6 different people.
Yeah, there's administrative people that will sit out here representing, the health department, conservation, and the building commissioner. So hopefully there'd always be somebody available to answer questions.
On the other side, it's an L counter that could be serviced by.
Correct, the L counter here with administrative personnel in 3 locations that should be visible.
Thank you. Heather?
What Russ started to get at with the ability to add 2 windows near the preservation area results from 2 things. One is relocating the HVAC air handlers up
that are
to
out.
the
things
west
outside.
side of the building,
Right.
and removing 2 vaults. There's 2 large vaults. that we're
Right in
moving.
through here where the vaults are. So,
No longer functioning as vaults, but functioning for file storage.
and this is also a counter here. This is like a window and a counter. So if someone comes in, they would be able to see. But this also allows some of the light from this window to filter into this corridor here.
I have a question on the storage. Since that was a huge storage area, where is the storage? Is it mostly computer now?
Upstairs,
Or
3rd floor.
what about archiving?
3rd floor.
What'd you say?
I believe
Get to it.
some of it's going to, I think the plan is to go off-site,
Oh, okay.
Off-site. That's a good idea.
so.
Yeah, we're going to have an off-site archive, essentially.
Okay.
I'm going to go up to the 3rd floor, because there's more changes there than there are in the center, the middle of the main floor. What we've done here, planning is now at this end of the building, at the stair here, and underneath this area of the building is HVAC, which 90% will be eliminated. There may be some duct work that has to be rerouted, but we're going to capture some of this space that's underneath the roof line, but we're also going to extend the dormer that's along here to create headroom and windows, and this whole end of the building will be town council, which will be moved to this building from their off-site location, which was part of the program request that we try to find enough space here for town council. We've kind of kept them off the beaten path. There is elevator access here. In this stairway here that now gets you to the 2nd floor would be used primarily for town council use.
Can I ask a question? You don't show a doorway for that northeast little meeting area, and it seems like there might be times when they would want to have a confidential meeting that involves more than just meeting our town councilor's office. Would that be difficult to put in there? You know,
where you?
The meeting room to the northeast.
Green.
Right next to the.
That one.
your
Oh,
right
this
door.
area.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, a separate door. Yeah, that would be very easy to
Yeah.
add there. So if, yeah, they had that extra level of privacy.
Yeah,
Yes,
because that's often required, you know, by the town councilor.
correct. Yeah, we could easily add a door here. The other request was to try to get an additional meeting room. You know, we captured the space down on the lower level where the civil defense room was located. So in an effort to replace that use, we've created a meeting room upstairs here. You know, it's right off the elevator. We have a little elevator lobby, very easy to access. It has its own AV room, and we've also connected that to the new lunchroom. So you can come in here from either direction. So we moved the break room up to the third floor, because we had more room for it there. One of the key elements to this plan is we propose to extend the main stair that you come in from the main level right there all the way up to the third floor. Because now if you come in, you have to walk down either end of the hallway. If you're not familiar with the building, it's not very user-friendly or convenient. So we're going to extend that stair right up, so if you come in the main entrance from the front parking lot, you know, and you need to go upstairs, it's right there without having to navigate the hallways to these other stairways. And another convenience feature, we put in, you know, handicap toilet rooms up there. Currently, there are no bathroom facilities up on that floor, so these would stack right above the existing main floor bathrooms. IT has expanded a little bit, but pretty much stays in the same location. We've added a secure storage room there, so when equipment comes in, before it's implemented, it can be stored and secure.
The meeting room on the third floor, the size would be bigger than this room? That was a little more rectangular than the square, but...
We have it for approximately 60 seats,
Okay.
the way it's laid out. We do have some area up here where there could be, you know, a desk arrangement. But I think that's flexible. I'm not sure what the capacity of this room is.
It's on the inspector's report in the corner.
It's probably over the corner there. Most of the area through here will stay. There's lots of infrastructure, mechanical chases and ductwork and air handlers that are under the eave here. So until we find out if any of that's going to be removed, but there's very limited headroom once you get too far beyond this wall. So there's no real plan yet to capture any of that space. And if it was, it may be some storage that may open up.
Okay.
Any third floor questions? Okay, thank you.
On the main floor or second floor, we're designing a new central directory location. Right now, there's some, you know, temporary furniture here in the corner where somebody is, but this is front and center, where somebody walking in would see that person, and that person would be able to direct whoever was coming into the building to wherever they needed to be. Again, that stair here would go right upstairs to the third floor or down to the first floor. Another change here, we moved Veteran Services to, I guess, the old Water Department room, which is another area that's kind of underutilized now. It's right adjacent to the elevator, so it's convenient for anybody who parked out back in the dedicated parking. They can come right in, up the elevator, and into Veteran Services. We have...
And right now, the only way to get to the water room is to come out the elevator, down the hallway, down the hallway and in.
Right, so this is directly here, affords some privacy and some more direct access from the elevator.
small conference room here. We eliminated this conference room for the finance and accounting. That's become an office now, so we captured some space here for another conference room. A little reworking here, this department, just to get the space for the this directory and front desk. A little reworking down here where we created another conference room. Like there was some underutilized space in here, so now we have a dedicated conference room. Of course, this room is not going to change. This room is now the treasurer's office. Toilet rooms won't change. So there's, I guess, of the 3 floors, the least amount of change is in this floor, other than capturing and reusing some space here that's underutilized and some shifting of some personnel.
Any questions from the board? Pat?
Do all the departments that are currently here now be accommodated in the new plan? Nobody has to leave, or I couldn't keep track of them?
I believe so.
We're actually bringing the
Town council's coming.
Town
I don't
council
believe
and-
anybody
Right,
has to leave.
okay,
The
thanks.
files. Just the
The
files.
files have to leave.
Rebecca?
I'm looking for the administrative assistant 1 and 2. They have all of that area that is adjacent to the assistant manager in the green. Yeah,
That's
it's
as
right
is.
there. So it's basically the same?
It's the exact same layout that's there. There's no changes to this.
There isn't a way that they could have more space?
We didn't look into that. Yeah, I know that you have a desk here and a
Yeah.
desk there. It's something we can discuss.
Is it, the storage room, I think, is personnel right now?
No.
No.
Personnel's up
That's
here.
the
In personnel, okay. So,
That's where Kyle is.
Yeah.
Correct. That's where Kyle is, our intern, and...
the
file
intern
storage
is in
room.
there, excuse me. Okay, all right, so that storage room is, I'm just looking for more space for the 2 assistants. And apparently you've just given them the same space they've always
gave
had.
them-
And so
correct.
is that storage space that important?
Well, I guess if those files can go off-site, then we may be able to take a look
Okay, so
at
the actual space is not going to change,
change.
but
No.
could it be possible, Heather needs a little more room? I think the assistants 1 and 2 need more room. I'm looking at that corner, and I think how much activity goes on in there, and I'm just thinking that I'd like for you to think about giving them more space.
Okay,
All right.
we'll take a look.
Any other questions?
You don't want me to put my hand up again.
It was a good question. We'll move on. Great. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Yes.
You're welcome. We will also be revisiting this one.
Thank you.
Sure.
Because I was sitting in the back of the room listening to this, and I think anything that will improve the HVAC system in this building will be welcomed by everybody. One of the rooms that was mentioned as underutilized and is now going to be much smaller is the civil defense room. I'm in there 3 times a year to vote, and I'm wondering where that function will take place, because I know it's been a big issue to move it around in other precincts. It's really nice to have it here in Town Hall, so I hope that gets considered in this.
That's the 3rd floor conference room.
Okay,
It's been designed.
so we're putting everybody up on the 3rd floor to vote.
There's an elevator, fully handicapped accessible. Correct. You do have some cost estimates too,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Cost estimates, Russ and Fred, did you want to walk through that?
Are you using your pen right now?
I can spare it.
Can you? Do this.
We have the summary estimates.
Thank you.
Cost estimate was provided by a professional estimating firm. Ryder, Levitt, and Bucknall. It's broken down into the three levels: level 1, 2, 3, infrastructure, and there is no site work in this project. So as you can see, level 1, they have an estimate of $1,049,555. Level 2, $756,424. Level 3, $621,790. But the interesting point is the cost per square foot, which came in actually lower than we thought it was going to come by a little bit. But you know, if it's lower by a little bit, it's better than higher by a little bit. So the level 1 came in $102.24 a square foot. In level 1, level 2 was $74.70 a square foot, and level 3 was $87.49 a square foot. So that's you know, an average. The average out to be the net cost of $3,032,747. Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
The only thing I might add is we've asked, at least in the level 1, which if you recall is the lower level, which was the area that was the priority of the board in terms of bringing those permitting features together more efficiently and effectively, also includes the center stairwell, bringing that down and up to the second level, including some finish work just around that area, so that you could have a complete phase 1, which would get your first floor accomplished. So that's what Julie and I have proposed in the capital plan, to move forward with just the first phase, and you'll be presented with that next week.
Is level 1 the same thing as floor 1?
Yes.
Okay. But, so you're saying level 1 is floor 1 plus
Center
stairway?
stairwell.
Okay.
Plus the stairwell.
So this is the part of the phasing plan that we don't need to do this whole building closed down and done.
You can do it in pieces.
One quick thing, I just want to tell you, I appreciate sort of the design nuance that really kept coming up in everything that you were looking at, which was customer service, eye contact, and efficient use of personnel through a little bit of opportunities for multitasking. And, you know, I think the design itself is going to have some strategic and economic benefits in the future, saving money, better customer service. So I appreciate all those details.
I just want to make one point, and Selectman Moran, I really appreciate you saying that, because often you get what is the end point of a very long and detailed process, and I just want to express what I know is both Julie and I's appreciation for a lot of dedicated work on the part of Russ and Fred in meeting with each and every one of the department heads, meeting with the department heads collectively, meeting with the chairman of the respective committees together. Getting to this point is really is a lot of effort to get here, so I appreciate the reflection that those really were the features that the board adopted in its vision for the reuse of town hall.
And so people will be happier working there too, because they've contributed to the design, so.
I guess the one piece I think in phase 1 may have to be is the third floor meeting room might have to be part of level 1 phase also, because as Catherine pointed out, if level 1 is shutting down the civil defense room, we've then lost the voting space if we don't at the same time open up the meeting room on the third floor. And I don't know if that's possible to be done as a piece of the first phase, but you know,
We can certainly explore that.
Right.
We always have this one
Level
for
1
one day.
includes that new
For voting?
stairway,
Yeah.
which leads you directly up to that meeting room.
right.
I mean, you could just
reverse the meetings, put the meetings upstairs and use this for voting.
Well, there's no meeting room
I mean-
upstairs.
Yeah, there is.
It's a small, it's not,
Only if we do the construction, if we do this in phases.
Oh, I see.
And we do
Yeah, well,
phase
they'd
one
have to be, right.
without phase two and phase three,
Mhm.
at least that part of phase three has to be done at the same time as phase one.
Right.
Sam?
yeah, and actually, I was kind of looking for a broader strategy on how we would move functions, people around, and services around during this phase construction process, and we're already kind of getting into that, right? So, I mean, when you're doing the first floor, where's everybody going to go? Are you going to do half at a time? What's the strategy?
That's the next step.
Right, they haven't looked at that.
Ah, okay.
That'll be,
That's
once we
not-
decide we're going
that's
to
the
do
next-
this, we'll then have to come up with that.
And we
But
don't
do
have to
notice
worry
that there
about
is a,
Sorry.
some budget item, there is no.
The thing, to follow on what Sue was saying, I really like the idea of all the permitting departments being in one place. So that particularly for builders, when they come in, they can just move right around almost in a circle and do what they need to do. And the same way for just the general public coming in to get a permit. It'll all be down, it will be on the first level. Parking hopefully will be easier in the back. And it makes it a lot easier for people to get permits. Of course, eventually, it'll probably be, a lot of it'll be computerized
That's right.
anyway, where you have
That's right.
e-permitting available. But still, just the idea, and I've always thought that if somebody comes in, a developer comes in, and they really want to build a project that involves different departments, by having them in that one space on that level, where the conference room, the ZBA or the planning board, or that everyone can be there, and a builder can meet with everybody he or she has to meet with all at the same time, because they're all right there. The files are there, their computers are there, and they're there. And that way, they're not running up from the bottom floor to the third floor, but everyone who is involved in permitting is right there. And I think it makes for a much smoother process.
I also like the appreciation, the way you've responded to some of the, very specific requests. That is in putting a shower on the first
Yeah.
floor level for the kinds of people who might be needing a shower. It's not the entire, people who work here aren't going to need a shower every day, but those people who might. And the kind of detail of having the entranceway actually having a desk as you walk in, someone to face you immediately to say, how can I help you? Can I assist you? It's fine the way it is right now, but still it's on your left as opposed to some place where you walk right in. And that kind of detail I thought was very effective in coming up with. Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is discussion of the new Silver Beach sewer betterment. And just to give a little background to the board, I had been approached by some people from New Silver Beach with some requests for our consideration. I had met with them, and Julian was a part of this also. Frank Duffy, we did get some information from Frank on it, and I just wanted to give a chance for these people to present their questions, concerns to us as a whole board. I did not feel I could speak for the board as a whole, but told them that I would give them a moment to be able to tell us what their requests are, and we can take it under advisement. So, who'd like to start off?
I would.
All right, so just your name and precinct, please.
Sure. My name's Bill Dinan. I'm from Precinct 5, New Silver Beach. And there's several people here this evening from New Silver Beach. Joe Keenan is also chairman of the HUF committee. I'm the co-chairman. It's not an acronym you're going to hear a lot of. HUF stands for Help Us Flush. And that committee's been around for a while in New Silver Beach. And it's working. We want to thank you for listening to us tonight, Mr. Chairman and board members. Give us an opportunity to participate in this process. We'd like to discuss the future of the residents of New Silver Beach and the fairness as Falmouth residents all want to be treated fairly. Before we go forward, let me recap how we got here, very briefly. 24 years ago, on August 19, 1991, Hurricane Bob devastated New Silver Beach. And I actually have that for your preview at a later time on VCR. It was taken, and it was, I don't remember that hurricane, but it was New Silver that buried. Board of Health declared a public emergency, being concerned with the possibility of septic system failures. A wastewater project was mandated, which was completed 16 years later in 2009. 16 years for an emergency. Obviously, it was a concern that it took that long due to the process that we went through after meetings, hearings, and legal delays. I know that the assistant town manager mentioned that the other day. We had a lot of delays in that project. The residents of New Silver Beach want no special treatments, just to be treated with fairness and parity in regards to financial structure of the betterment and the interest charges. We just want to be treated the same as everybody else in the town. I'm sure all you agree that all Falmouth residents should be accorded the same treatment, whether you are a group of 200 homes, 1,400 homes, or one home. We all should be treated the same. As our town fathers, you have an opportunity to correct this oversight. We'd like at this time to go on with a PowerPoint presentation that Mr. Keenan's put together. And he was a big force in putting this whole packet together right there. So give us a second to set that up and we'll take it from there. Any questions for me before we do that? That was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. You did good. Who has a copy of this?
We do.
I think some of the audience has a copy. First thing I'd like to thank everybody who's been involved in this thing up to now. Doug, Julian, and Heather, and Frank Duffy, who's not here. I have asthma, so if it sounds like I'm losing my breath, I am. So don't worry, I'll be okay. This isn't about the past, this is about the future. We know that the betterment can't be changed. Back in 2009, betterment was established by law to be 20-year payback. It also included the opportunity for the town to charge 2 or 5% interest on the 0% loan. The town, there was no option for 0%. It was either 2 or 5. The problem occurred was that we were told over 10 years there'd never be any interest. And all of a sudden, when the project was done, 2.5% interest came out of the woodwork. But we had no choice to accept that. And that was voted on by the selectmen. The 20-year payback had to do with Chapter 80, Section 13 of state law. So nothing was done wrong back then. But we felt that either the town, about the interest rate, either they were incompetent, didn't know about it, or they weren't going to tell us to the end. So what happened was, paying back $27,000 over 20 years, plus the interest, has cost us about $2,000 a year, each home, which is crazy. We have some people up there whose Social Security check is $1,700 a month, and they're still trying to meet the requirements of this betterment and the interest. So all of a sudden, Little Pond popped up in Chapter 49, which I've given you a copy of. Chapter 49 was written by Frank Duffy. It was presented to the legislature and passed as a law. It's called Chapter 49. You all familiar with it? Mm-hmm. It says here very clearly in the middle of it, it says, Town of Falmouth may assess and collect interest on an unpaid balance of a sewer betterment assessment. We have an unpaid balance of the sewer betterment. In other words, we all owe about $20,000, still on the original betterment. So technically, that's an unpaid betterment. Would you agree?
I'm looking for one head going up and down, just one. In section 2 of this, it says, all future SOAR assessments or unpaid balances of assessments over a period not to extend 30 years. We're paying it back over 20 years. Now with Chapter 49, we have a chance to pay it back over 30 years, according to what this says. If you read this, Chapter 49, read what it says. Now, when we met with Frank Duffy, who wrote this, as soon as he told me he wrote it, I felt like Tom Brady. We didn't have a prayer. So we met with him. It was a nice meeting. I thought it was very cordial. And he told us that he didn't agree that our request was valid under this Chapter 49. But here's the killer in his opinion. It says, I said, all future SOAR assessments or unpaid balances of assessments. He wrote all future SOAR assessments and unpaid balances of assessments. So, or and are the same. So not only did he write the wrong thing, he stuck a word in there that made the same inference as or. Everybody getting this, or am I confusing myself? So based on the fact that it clearly states unpaid balances, that's us. We're not looking for something that's already happened. We don't want our money back. We just want whatever the unpaid balance is, allow us to pay it off over 30 years. And take the 2.5% interest that we've been paying and waive it. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. In either case, it doesn't cost you anything. We still have to pay the betterment back. And the 2.5% you haven't got yet, so it doesn't cost you anything if you think about it. We have this little schedule here. Basically, the schedule is set up, and you all have a copy to show. We compared it to Little Pond. Little Pond is like Christmas in Falmouth compared to what we went through. Get out of here, I'm trying to talk. The betterment assessment is based on the cost of the project, so we don't have a problem with that. Although, we were forced to just put 200 people in it when the system could hold 300 people. And I still can't figure that one out. So we're paying it back over 20 years. They have 30 years. We're paying $1,376 a year in assessment for the betterment. And the interest has been running around $650 a year. So if you go down, betterment paid to date, we've paid almost $7,000 in the betterment based on the 20-year payback. Then the 200 homes which were allowed to be in the project, as opposed to 300, the system could hold 300 homes. It still can as of today. The capacity for the treatment plant is 300 homes. But what they did was they limited it to 200 homes. We didn't have a lot of input on this. And we weren't smart enough back then to ask the questions that we're asking right now. The money came from the Massachusetts Clear Water Trust. You all aware of that? And I'm sure you're going to be going there again, right? For other projects. The interest rates charged to residents, 2% of the outstanding balance. That was that Chapter 80, Section 13 original charge, which was fine. That was the law. This is the one we don't understand. Pre-construction expense financing was 0.5%. This pre-construction expense was never mentioned for Little Pond. Does anybody have any idea why that's not true? Or am I wrong? Or do you understand what it is? In other words, design, engineers, architects, whatever. The money that the town used to pay them, they charge us the 0.5% interest, which was not included in the 2 and the 5% interest. This is a separate charge the town decided to charge us. But Little Pond, I've never heard anybody say anything about these pre-construction expense costs. Has that ever been brought up? Can anybody answer that?
I believe it was still funded on the 0% loan as opposed to in the new Silver Beach project, that funds were not covered under the 0% loan. And so there was an interest charge on the pre-construction charge in New Silver Beach. There was no interest charge for the town on the pre-construction costs for the Little Pond, is what I understand it.
So there's enough money to cover that? Why aren't they being charged for the money that you had to borrow to pay for those?
Because we were able to borrow it under 0 interest.
Okay, now you did that, the town did that for us also, but we got charged 0.5%.
We were not able to get a 0 interest loan on the pre-construction costs for the New Silver Beach. The 0 interest loan was only on the construction for the New Silver Beach project. And that was under the Clean Water, under that act. Is we did get a 0 interest loan for part of it, but not for the entire project.
So the deal with the Mass Clean Water Trust was different than it was for us?
I believe so.
Okay. So the interest we're going to be charged for the whole 20-year payback is $6,500. Little Pond isn't paying anything. Interest paid to date, $3,000. So if you take the interest paid to date and the money that we've paid towards the betterment, you're talking almost $10,000 we've paid in 5 years. Now, compared to Little Pond, especially the interest, doesn't make any sense at all. We're paying 70% of the project cost, they're paying 70%. The town's paying 30, they pay for us, and 30 for Little Pond, which is fine. Now this I don't understand. 0% loan amount was $7,775,000. The applied to the New Silver Beach was $6,372,000. There was $1,402,000. Where did that get applied? Does anyone know? In other words, with that 0% loan that came over, there was $1,400,000 that wasn't applied to us. Where was it applied? We'd like an answer for that one. Also, conservation permit cost, $600. We had to get a plot plan, and we had to get somebody to go before the conservation committee, and it cost that person $600. Now, what about the conservation permit cost for Little Pond? Anybody got any ideas about what's going on there? Do they have to go before the conservation board?
I do not believe so.
Why was that? Why wouldn't that be true? If these people that close to the water.
Some do.
Say it again?
Some do. Those that are within 100 feet of a conservation resource will have to go through conservation.
Do they know that?
Yes, it was told to them.
Okay, hookup fee, we paid $3,000. They have no idea what they're going to pay. All our permits were included in the hookup fee. Now, we pay $244 a year minimum charge for wastewater with our water bill. Is everybody aware of that? That's the minimum charge. And the questions we have, basically, why did the town limit it to 200? We could have easily had 300. We'd be paying a third less than we're paying now, which is a lot of money. These are questions that we could never get answered. This goes along with that, where you can add up
You
another.
have to use the microphone, otherwise.
You have to take it with you. That's all right. Just take it right off.
Sorry about my voice. This is the other question, is we can add 100 more homes, not only inside the septic area, but also outside the area. And the question that follows that is, if somebody hooks up to the system now, what do they pay? We paid $27,000.
I believe we do have an answer for that. I'm not sure if you want to get in touch with it. I'm not sure, Jennifer, do we have an answer as to if someone wanted to hook up to the New Silver Beach? So is there a cost to what that would be?
New Silver Beach or Little Pond?
New Silver Beach.
I think, I don't know the answer to New Silver Beach.
Okay.
That's not involved
Frank Duffy told us that it's a negotiated item. Well, he said it was in a bylaw, but I can't find it in the bylaws. Unless we have a specific schedule of what somebody has to pay to hook up to the system, that leaves it wide open. Somebody could walk in there and make a deal, like they tried to do with the, what do you call it, what was that construction?
Good construction.
Good Construction tried to put a house basically in the middle of the marsh. His attorney was negotiating supposedly with the selectmen. I don't know how true that is.
No. And I believe for both projects, there will have to be a fee determined by the Board of Selectmen as to what the hookup cost will be, either for New Silver or in the future for Little Pond. That in addition, hookups in the future, there'll have to be a fee set as to what it's going to cost to do so.
When's that going to happen? It's been 10 years, 15 years with us.
I was under the impression that it already had been done for New Silver Beach, and we'll need to continue looking into that. Maybe we have an answer. Amy Lowell?
Joe, I don't mean to interrupt you, just on that specific question. To date, connections to New Silver have not been, additional connections have not been allowed. That's in the New Silver Beach bylaw. The sewer service area was set at that time. So if the board wished to change that service area and allow additional connections, then that could be done. But to date, no additional connections have been made, so there is not a fee or a policy for that.
And if we did make a determination to increase it, at that point, we would have to determine what the fee for hooking up to it is.
Correct.
Just as if we're going to do the same thing for Little Pond, is say, are we going to allow more hookups to that in the current plan? And before, at that time, we'll have to set a policy as to, and what are we going to charge those people to do so?
Correct.
Pat?
But I think there's also the issue of the capacity of the plant,
Sure.
too, at New Silver
Yep.
Beach, which is, might be a little bit different at Little Pond.
Yep.
I think it also requires a new permit from the Department of Environmental Protection as well for discharge from that package treatment plant. So it's not purely simple. It will be a process that will take time and some administrative hoops that we're going to have to go
But
through.
anyone saying that there are hookups that are being allowed in New Silver Beach, and there's a negotiation with the Board of Selectmen for the cost of it, it does not know what they're talking about.
One question, Mr. Chairman. Future hookups, once that fee is determined, based on what we did on the split, the 70-30, where will that money go?
It has to go to the general fund. There is no option for money coming in from betterments, but into the general fund.
That's a bylaw, right?
Is that a
No,
bylaw?
It's an act of it is a statute on betterment by the state.
Can that be changed by another law?
I guess every single
Like a
law
Chapter
can be
49
changed.
type? Okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make sense either. We paid 70% of the cost, and if somebody hooks up, the town gets the whole amount of money. That's just wrong, I think.
But that's the way the betterment law is written.
Well, I'm sorry, this voice thing's killing me. We're here to go forward, not to go backwards. What we want is, we want our unpaid betterment to be allowed to be the 30-year payback, which according to Chapter 49 can be done. We also want the interest to be zero, which Chapter 49 says can be done. Now, if you say you can't do it based on Frank Duffy, then we'd like to have our state rep review the law, because he's the one who filed it. I think his name is it Vieira?
Yes.
He's one for half the town, yes.
So if you have any question about Frank's capabilities, then you could go to this Mr. Vieira, Representative Vieira, to have him look at it. But if you read the law, it clearly states it applies to us. So if that's not, if you don't agree with that and don't apply it to us, we're going to be very unhappy. As stupid as that sounds.
That is completely understood.
You're just looking for fairness, that's all. I mean, it's 16 years after the emergency was declared by the Water House. 16 years.
What couldn't have been a big emergency if it took 16 years to get straightened out?
Well, it was lawsuits that were, the town had no option because of the suits that were being held by one person.
Right.
You know why
There
the
was
town...
that the town didn't think it was an emergency. It was that one person was holding up via lawsuits.
Also, the fact that it's been said that a lot of these septic systems at New Silver wouldn't pass the Title V. Nobody tested anything. That was an assumption that was made. Anybody here from New Silver? Do you think we were treated fairly?
Okay, remember, this is my meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Doug, can we take a vote? No, I'm only kidding.
Thank you.
I usually come across much better than this. I've been president of the association up at Silver Beach for 11 years on and off. I've lived in the town 36 years. I'm not here by accident. All of us have been here a long time. We're just looking to be treated fairly. If you allow us to write off the balance of our betterment over 30 years and drop that interest to zero, that's basically the core of what we're looking for. I'd like to thank everybody, Doug, Julian, Heather, and the selectmen.
So would the board like to take this under advisement, or do you feel that?
Take under advisement.
Okay.
Yes, I would.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. How would the board feel on a short little recess? Or
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That'd be great.
we're going to take a very short little break before we
Because
pick up.